Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the Sports Insight with your host Alamdar Khan. And yes, as you all know, we always give you information about sports from all across the globe. What you can do is you can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is at the rate of Indus News Sports. That basically works for the Twitter and Instagram. But anyways, we'll go to the headlines first. Yes, from the world of PSL, yes, the Season 6 is postponed after 7 COVID cases reported in the competition. Demba Babuma made history after being named as the first black African captain of South African cricket side. We'll surely talk about that. Yes, from the world of squash, the PSA Tour will return this month when the best male and female squash player will be lining up for Blackball Sporting Club in Cairo. And yes, from the world of Premier League, Chelsea beat Liverpool 1-0. And yes, from the world of NBA, Portland Trail Blazers actually scores 123-119 victory over the visiting Sacramento Kings. And yes, those were the headlines, and surely we're talking about the irony of the situation for now, because PSL Season 6 has also come to a halt, and there are over 7 players, not only the players, a few staff members. Up till now, that's what we've heard from PCB, and PCB is obviously looking into the loophole, what exactly went wrong, where exactly the situation kind of came up to this point. You know, it kind of got more complicated when Karachi Kings Australian all-rounder Daniel Christian pulled out of the event. But not to forget, David Miller actually flew into Pakistan on the 2nd of March. But unfortunately, by 4th, things kind of got out of hands. To discuss this and, you know, how will it affect the upcoming tour, because if you all recall, the Proteas had sent an invitation to Pakistan to fly over to South Africa to have their upcoming series of not only T20s but also Test. But unfortunately, because of this situation, there will be a lot of fingers being pinpointed to each other. So will Pakistan be taking that journey towards South Africa? But you know, to discuss all of this, we have Adrian Ephraim all the way from Cape Town, South Africa, joining us. Adrian, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So Adrian, as you've noticed and seen the news that have recently developed with regards to PSL coming to a halt, so our cricket board is surely under a lot of pressure, because it's not only having us or our team members or Pakistani cricketers who actually are going through this, but you know, having foreign players in the country, but then coming to this situation obviously creates a lot of havoc, and you know, a situation in which everybody's going to pinpoint fingers. Where did PCB or you know, the management or the government? So you know, we have a lot of pressure right now, and they're surely they're saying that, you know, they'll put in their best to give us that option of you know, keeping things intact, and you know, ensuring that, you know, all the players get vaccinated, sending them back to the country. So how do you see this developing into the point of the visit that we actually had planned for South Africa?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the next few weeks pan out. I think the next few weeks are critical for both countries. How Pakistan re-engineers itself and re-engineers the tour that leaves outside of the country.
Right.
I feel for cricket administrators these days. I feel like the weight of responsibility has grown exponentially over the last year,
Right.
where they now have to create these biosafe bubbles for players. There's so much logistics that have to be considered, and you do feel sorry for the PCB and how things have unfolded over the last few days and weeks. Yes, it will have an impact on how the tours take place. There'll be a lot more kind of, I suppose South Africa will be a lot more cautious into, you know, how are you guys traveling to South Africa? What kind of safe environment are you creating before your players leave the country and travel to South Africa? Because we certainly don't want to have a situation where players arrive and some of them have tested positive or perhaps having symptoms. So yeah, it's a very tricky next couple of weeks for both countries. Look, I think South Africa's been on the other side of this as well. You'll know the England tour was cut short early last year, and that obviously affected morale. It affected financially the South African Cricket Association. So there's a lot of things to consider, and I think both countries want to play. And I think they will both behave responsibly and try to make this happen, because they've both been on the receiving end of these kind of situations.
Right. So you basically talked about one important thing, which was obviously both the countries want to play. And obviously getting a country, when PSL started in the country, so we could have or sense that happy vibe, there was something different from last year. Because of the COVID situation, things are really, really out of control. And even when South Africa was here, it was definitely, we all enjoyed it for the fact that we won. Even though everything was in control, the biosecure bubble was intact. But for this, it was a bigger series, it was bigger players, a lot of players, and they had to keep an eye on each and every one. But there was something that actually went wrong, and they're still trying to look into it. We're just hoping that the number that they've given does not grow to that level of, because once you break that bubble, now we truly understand the idea of the biosecure perspective. But let's go thinking of this biosecure thing, how it affected obviously De Kock as well. Because De Kock went in Pakistan, and after he went back to South Africa, his complete thought process, his mental breakdown news, things that were coming in from your cricket board. How do you see that? And now, obviously, we'll talk more about the South African side, the new captain as well. So we'll start from De Kock. How do you see these biosecure bubbles affecting them?
Yeah, look, I think they've, De Kock in particular, he and a few other players had some kind of difficulty, being in the safe bubble. It does affect you mentally and the preparations that you make for tournaments. Right. There was a lot of pressure on Quinton de Kock, even from a captaincy point of view, not from a playing and a form point of view, just from a captaincy point of view. Right. Obviously, all of this compounded with the idea of being safe and staying in one place and just following protocols. It does weigh a player down, and for a player like Quinton de Kock, who kind of thrives on freedom and just being himself. This was probably an adjustment for him that he found too difficult. And then that, of course, played out in the field and the way that he captained the team. And obviously, we saw some weaknesses in him as a captain. Right. Having said that, the cricket South Africa has taken the decision to replace him as captain, give him a chance to just flourish as a player, right. And take the burden of captaincy away from him. Right. And as we've learned in the last 2 days that it is Temba Bavuma, right. the white ball captain, which is a very historic moment for South Africa. And I can't believe that it's 2021, and this is the first time we've had a black African captain of our national cricket team. Right. But that is the case, and it's a time to celebrate for South African cricket. But also to reflect on why it's taken this long for someone like Temba Bavuma to come up.
True. So how do you see, this is, obviously you just announced that, it's the white ball captain. So how do you see who's actually going to be on the other side when it comes to, T20s and, maybe the ODIs? How do you see that developing for the captaincy? Because obviously talking about Bavuma, obviously with his experience, and it took really a while for the South African board to come up with the decision. But how do you see the other side of the cricket? Who would probably, in your opinion, would probably be the captain?
Yeah, I think there were other contenders for that position. Keshav Maharaj recently has shown a real appetite for leadership. Certainly in the domestic game, he was the captain of the Dolphins franchise for the T20 CSA Challenge. Right. And he performed really well as a captain. He showed a real appetite for leading the team. Right. There were other contenders. Reza Hendricks, he was the leading run scorer in the competition, the T20 Challenge recently. Right. He would have put his hand up to be captain. But I think ultimately, there was a consultation within the squad and amongst the selectors, and I think the general feeling was that Temba Bavuma is ready. He's ready to be captain now, and he's shown the kind of leadership qualities over the past few years in the Test team, in the ODI team, and in the T20 team. Right. And certainly, he led the Lions to the T20 Challenge title this past week. Played a leading role throughout the tournament. Really built the team around him and allowed the players to come through, like Reza Hendricks and Kisa Rabada in the Lions team as well. They really dominated that competition, and it was, I think, to Bavuma's credit that they did so well.
Right. So coming to the crux of the matter, I'm sure that the entire perspective for now is not only in Pakistan, but I'm sure it's the COVID situation is across the globe. Some stories that are coming out now, people are talking about this called the third wave of coronavirus. So if things eventually go to that point of, like how it really started, because instantaneously it kind of hit all sports sections, all players physically, mentally. So if this third wave, which is being said that is slowly and gradually developing, how do you see everything developing, not only for, Pakistan, obviously you said that South African Cricket Board also suffered on a financial level. Pakistan did also suffer. How do you see if the third wave comes in and, all these players have to go through another really, really tougher biosecure bubble if performing? So that's the tricky part. So how do you see that affecting us in the long run?
Yeah, I think the danger of the third wave could throw everything out of the loop. South Africa, we're expecting the third wave actually in April, sometime in April, towards the end of April. We were hearing from the experts, and if that happens, we go back into another lockdown, which means certain sports have to be played in an even more secure bio bubble, or not at all, and those decisions will be governed by our government. So it is worrying that we are still expecting the third wave, but the positive is that we're rolling out the vaccine. We're kind of moving towards herd immunity, later in this year, obviously.
Right.
So I think our cases have dropped quite significantly in the country over the last few weeks. So as things stand now, it's looking positive.
Right.
But like we said, in a few weeks' time, that infection rate could increase again. The third wave could come back, and then we've got to wait and see. Then both PCB and CSA have to have another chat again and decide whether this is the right thing to do, given the environment that we are in,
Right.
or if the risk is too much, that we have to postpone the tour again.
Right.
Hopefully, and I'll cross fingers that doesn't happen. But we're in such tricky territory at this point with the pandemic, and as Pakistan have learned over the last week, that anything could happen and complete tournaments could be disregarded because of the virus.
Even if we talk about disregarded, if we look at, let's even talk about the tennis side, even Australian Open, actually, there are a lot of players actually suffered from this COVID situation. It became really, really hard for them. Now, if we look back, there was a tour that was planned for South Africa and Australia, but unfortunately it came up to a halt, which obviously on the South African cricket side were giving them all the leverage that they could. And now, how do you see them taking that decision back then? Because, it's kind of tricky for now to understand, but things as they're exponentially growing, we did have our PSL, but, we eventually came up to, the COVID situation. So how do you see now recall that decision from the Australian government?
Yeah, look, I think Australia, from what I've heard and from what we've been reading in the press, is that Australia were being quite difficult. They were being very, very strict in terms of what conditions would allow them to travel to South Africa.
Right.
CSA believed that they did everything in their power to meet the Australians' demands in terms of securing venues, securing accommodation for players, and making sure everything was done right.
Right.
And I think it was probably left a very sour taste in Cricket South Africa's mouths, the fact that Australia cancelled their tour, because it's a loss of revenue for South Africa. The Australia tour is one of the major ones for us, and secondly, we're denied the opportunity of seeing our best players in action again, and especially against the old enemy, which is Australia. Right. So I believe that Australia made the wrong decision in not coming. I think they had enough information. South Africa had done enough to secure the tour.
Right.
And as you can see in the T20 challenge, we had a secure, biosafe area there, right. and there were no hiccups. And that was a 2-3 week long tournament. Right. So there were no hiccups in that tournament. Everything was safe. And that same principles could have applied to the Australia tour, but unfortunately they didn't think it was good enough.
Right.
But that's their decision.
Yeah, well, anyways, Adrian, thank you so much for being with us, sharing your point of views and your opinion on not only coronavirus perspective, but obviously the next Pro Tees tour that Pakistan is intending to come to. But he was absolutely right with regards to one thing that if we talk about two teams competing together, it's easier for the management to actually look into their health perspective and with regards to the biosecure bubble. Anyways, we'll talk more after the break, so I'll see you guys after the break. And welcome back after the break. And yes, we were discussing the PSA World Tour that's going to happen hopefully soon, which is actually according to the plan right now, it's from the March 12th to the 25th. But it will definitely have male-female squash players with a prize money of $350,000. But that's going to be scheduled in Cairo. So we'll be discussing more on the world of squash. But to discuss this, we have our champion squash player, Mr. Khalid Khan, with us. Khalid, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Pleasure, pleasure. So Khalid, we'll be talking about the upcoming event that's scheduled because we were talking before the break, we were talking about that how COVID-19 has really created a havoc state for everybody, for all the sports athletes out there. So how did it impact this world of squash? We'd like to start with that to begin with.
Yeah, obviously COVID-19 has affected squash all over the world. The players are stuck in home,
Right.
no tournaments. So I think after since the pandemic has affected all over the world, this is the first biggest event in Cairo, which will be starting from the 12th of March.
Right.
It will be in the Black Ball Sporting Club in Cairo.
Right.
The world best 48 male players and 48 female players, they will participate in this tournament. It's a platinum level tournament. They
Right.
have increased the prize money. Also, they have increased the draw size to give opportunity to more and more players so that they can show their talent and skills in the tournament.
Right. That's an interesting journey with regards to increasing the number of players. Obviously, there are so many athletes who are actually working on it. I would want to know more about your journey as a squash player as well. How did it all start? You know, whenever we think about squash, while being here in Pakistan, so we always think about the two Khans, obviously Jansher Khan and Jahangir Khan, who are like the king of squash. So I'm sure you definitely would have had inspiration and derived off them. So I would like to know more about your journey as a squash player.
Yeah, sure. I have started squash when I was like around 6 years.
Right.
Squash is my family game, and luckily I belong to the family of champions. I'm the nephew of ex-world champion Jansher Khan.
Nice.
In my family, basically the first champion was Mohibullah Khan. He was the former world number 2. The first World Open was in 1976, and he was the one who played the final. And after that, like my father played squash. My father was the British amateur finalist. He also won the World Team Championship in 1977 in Canada.
Nice.
He also won many other international titles like Malaysian Open, Singapore Open 4 times in a row, and many other international tournaments he won. Then after him, Jansher, he came and he was world number 1 for around 11 years.
Right.
Like it's a big time, you know. And since 1950 till 1997, Pakistan have a legacy of squash, you know.
Right.
We won around 30 British Open and 14 World Open. So out of 14 World Open, 8 World Open is with our family.
Wow.
And like it's a big achievement for my family.
Indeed.
We also have many other good players in our family. Like after Jansher, my cousin Amjad Khan, he was world number 11.
Right.
And after him, like I was the captain of Pakistan team. I played international squash. I won the World Junior Team event in 2002. In 2004, I was also ranked number 1 in under 19 in all over the world in 2003.
Right.
I'm the British junior finalist, the Asian junior team event champion. Beside this, I have many national and international titles under my belt and represented Pakistan all over the world on international platform. My another brother, my younger brother,
Right.
Amir Atlas Khan, he was also world number 14. He's the youngest Pakistani national who got the civil award, and he's the Asian individual champion, and many other international titles he won. My another brother Danish Atlas Khan, he was also the captain of Pakistan team.
Right.
He also won many international tournaments. My other brothers brothers, like the older one, the younger one. He also like we all brothers and father. We all the president and prime minister awarded, and currently I'm working as a head squash coach in Lifetime Athletic Club Burlington.
Right.
I'm also a qualified coach and tutor from World Squash Federation.
Right. That's a lot of achievements, to be very honest, and making me super proud. And I'm sure people from Pakistan will be super proud about the achievements that you guys have. I'm sure. But the thing is, besides all of this, I'm sure you would have, when the Corona situation happened, when the COVID-19 took place, a lot of people could not really go just to even practice. So not practicing while, and specifically for an athlete who cannot go out to practice, or specifically in the times of COVID-19, how much did it affect your athleticism or your game or all the squash players out there?
Obviously, it affected us all. Like when the squash courts were closed, we were stuck in house,
Right.
and like we were very frustrated. But it's our family game, and all the like my brothers, my father, we were in home, and but we discussed a lot about squash.
Right.
We did the alternate workouts, which is helpful for squash.
Right.
So in our home, like we kept ourselves busy, and sometimes we used to go out and run on the road for
Right.
like for 1 hour, for 45 minutes. So we tried to keep ourselves busy.
Right. So fitness is definitely one important thing, I'm sure. But for instance, like this event that's scheduled for Cairo in March, how do you see this happening? Because there is still the biosecure bubble issues that are that most of the governments are trying to keep intact, so that the situation for any player does not go bad. Like PSL actually came up to a point of coming to a halt. So do you expect that the Black Ball Sporting Club in Cairo will manage to host an event which would be in a biosecure bubble?
Of course, like we all have to follow the COVID instructions,
Right.
whatever the instructions, the government policies have, we have to follow that.
Right.
And another big hurdle is like the traveling restrictions. It's not easy, but it's I think we should encourage them, and we should appreciate them that they are holding this big
Right.
event
Right.
in this situation. All the players who will participate in this tournament, before they they will go under the test in their respective country, and when they will be there, they will be tested during the tournament after every 4 days. And they will make sure that everything is good.
Right.
Otherwise, it will be a problem again. But they will handle it professionally.
Yeah,
They
hopefully.
have good plans.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure that is it. But as you mentioned, that the number of players were increased as well. So when you increase the number of players, obviously the risk factor slightly goes up, because when Pakistan was hosting, the Pro Teas, when they came to Pakistan for that series, Pakistan versus South Africa, it was pretty much managed well. But when increasing number of players are there out, I mean, like in PSL we had a lot of players, and somewhat the biosecure bubble kind of broke, which kind of brought the entire thing to halt. I hope that it doesn't happen. It would definitely affect a lot of people. Besides all of this, I'll just ask you one last question with regards to squash. Which is that one moment in your time that you can remember and recall? Sometimes there are good moments with regards to your achievements. So I'm sure there would be that one moment in your life. Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, we have a lot of good moments, but I will say about like it was a moment when me, my two more brothers, my father, like we all were awarded by the Prime Minister of Pakistan on the same time, same platform for projecting the image of country on international level.
Wow.
Because this has never happened in the history of Pakistan, that four people from the same family, like three brothers and father, they were
Wow.
awarded by the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Also, it's a big honor for me that our ex-president of Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf,
Right.
he put my picture in his book.
Nice.
So yeah,
That is
and
something to be, yes,
like
that is something to be super proud of. Khalid, thank you so very much for being a part of this show. It's an honor to have a conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me on
Pleasure.
your show. Thank you.
Pleasure. So that was Khalid Atlas Khan, and yes, with regards to the achievements that he talked about, it's a super brilliance, and we're super proud that he joined in my show. But anyways, that was pretty much news with regards to squash. We'll jump over quickly to an update with regards to the English Premier League. Yes, with regards to the English Premier League, Chelsea actually manages to win against Liverpool, which is definitely sad. Why? Because club side is suffering the fifth straight loss. So I don't know how things will develop in future, but Thomas Tuchel, since the point he joined in Chelsea as their manager, things have started to literally improve for them. And hopefully things may further improve. We're still looking at the charts, and Manchester City is still on top. However, Liverpool is slowly and gradually going down. I hope in the future things develop well for them. So that was from the world of Premier League. I'll quickly switch over to the world of NBA. Yes, with regards to the world of NBA, Damian Lillard actually ties his second high with a 44-point as Portland Trailblazers actually win against Sacramento Kings. The victory was 123 by 119. Not to forget that, those 44 points were 3-pointers and also 7 assists that actually made sure that they win against them. And hopefully we would like to see more, because the run for the MVP is also on. And not only that, an interesting update with regards to the NBA All-Star. We're also looking forward to that as well. Anyways, this was pretty much from the world of NBA for you all. I think we're pretty much done with the news for now. Anyways, you guys can surely reach out to us on our social media handle, which is @the rate of Indus News Sports. Till then, take good care of yourself, and bye-bye.